Hello, welcome along to the Fun Kids Science Weekly, the greatest podcast in the universe. My name's Dan. Thank you so much for listening and for joining in as we travel around the galaxy trying to find out all the little nuggets of sciencey secrets that are lurking about places. This week, we'll talk about one of the most dangerous birds in the world. I've also got good news for the climate, and we need some of that always. And you can hear how maybe what you thought you knew about monkeys, like the one thing that you were certain about monkeys, why that might be a lie after all. It's on the way, as well as your questions next. First, let's kick it off with a lesson from the smartest school outside of the solar system. This is Deep Space High.
Deep Space High, space for all.
Jump into a wormhole and travel to Deep Space High, the school in space. But hurry, because lessons are about to begin.
Morning, everyone. Today, we're going to carry on looking at the different jobs that people do in space. And remember, it's not all about being rocket scientists or doing loads of sums. Space is for everyone, whatever your interests. Who'd like to share their interests? Go on, Pling.
Well, languages are pretty fun. I learned how to speak Torquetian last month so I could join in with the chat on a video game I bought.
Was it difficult?
Nah, I completed the game in a week. Oh, you meant the language. It was pretty easy. There's only 10 words in the whole language. They mostly communicate in smell.
So what did learning Torquetian enable you to do?
Well, I couldn't have joined in if I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't want to be left out.
That's a good point. Being able to communicate with others, wherever they come from, is an important everyday skill, and especially so when it comes to space. And to help demonstrate this, computer sim Baikonur Cosmodrome, please. Welcome to Kazakhstan. The Baikonur Cosmodrome is the largest operational space launch facility on Earth, and for many years the only way to get to the International Space Station was by hitching a ride on a Russian ship, namely a Soyuz craft. So anyone wanting to visit the ISS had to brush up on their Russian.
I don't get it, sir. My dad's got a BMW. That's a German car. But he doesn't have to speak German to drive it.
I very much doubt your dad's going into orbit in his BMW, Sam. Being able to share a common language helps to ensure the safety of any crew. Astronauts travelling on Soyuz don't just learn a few words, they must be able to understand technical jargon too. It can take hundreds of hours of lessons. Sometimes astronauts stay with Russian families to practice their skills.
So maybe I could teach astronauts Russian?
Well, certainly Russian has been very important. And remember, Russian astronauts will have learned to speak English. Things, though, can change, and rocket launches might start to be more commonplace in other countries, such as China, India, and even from Britain.
I imagine astronauts come from nations all across Earth, right?
That's right. There's a whole range of languages one might hear on the International Space Station.
Il est facile de naviguer dans ce cours
As
à
well as
l'aide de
speaking in
commandes
different
qui
languages,
sont familières.
things like documents, manuals, signs, even food menus. They all need to be translated into different languages. Okay, end sim, computer. And once in space, language experts could be part of exploration in a very exciting way. There's a chance that there's unknown life out there who might be trying to communicate with us.
Yeah, I think there's something mouldy in Quark's lunchbox that's a whole new life form.
Their communication might be spoken words or sounds or written as symbols or even something totally different, like the Tausetian smell language.
That was weird.
Linguists, that's people who are specialists in languages, analyse these communications to crack the code and understand the message. Many languages have things in common, such as words for objects and for actions. The more languages you learn and study, the easier it is to see the patterns. Is that something you might like to do, Sam?
I think I'll stick to computer language.
Fair enough. Well, that's the end of today's lesson. We'll look at more of your favourite things next time and see how space really is for all. Even you, Sam. Class dismissed.
Deep Space High, space for all. With support from the UK Space Agency. Find out more at funkidslive.com/space.
Right, let's get sciencey with some of your questions now. If you've got anything niggling around your brain that you want answered on the show, you need to leave it as a review for us over on Apple Podcasts. That's what Cash has done. Cash is in Ohio, in America. Thank you very much, Cash. Who wants to know, when did the Egyptian civilization first begin? And how do we know about it? Well, I mean, Cash, it's more of a history question. But, thanks for asking. I'll take it. I'll give it a go. It first began, we think, around 7,000 BC, which is 9,000 years ago. That's when people first started living in the Nile Valley. Now, it went on for a long time. You might have heard of Cleopatra, quite famous. She was the last active pharaoh of ancient Egypt. Well, get this for a mind-blowing tidbit. Cleopatra was born closer to us right now than to when the pyramids were built. That's how long the civilization of ancient Egypt went on for. Now, we know this because they wrote it down in hieroglyphics, and we understand them because we found something called the Rosetta Stone. It's a big slab of rock, and it's got writing in loads of different languages on them, and we've used those to translate and to crack the code of what the glyphs meant. And the Rosetta Stone is in the British Museum right now. If you're ever in London, Cash, go and have a look. Say hello while you're here. Staying in America now, this is from Robin, who is 7 years old, who wants to know, how do volcanoes erupt? Now, we've spoken about this on the show before, Robin. In fact, if you look back in our episode feed, on one of the very first episodes that we did, you'll find one of the special guests we had was a volcanologist. He goes into this in much greater detail than I can. He's a proper expert. But, very quickly, Robin, they are made by the Earth crashing into each other. Pretty much. See, the Earth is made of these huge tectonic plates. They fit together in like a big jigsaw underneath our feet. They're always moving a little bit. Now, when they're squashed into each other, they force the sides upwards. And that makes this volcano. Imagine like a ridge that's being pushed higher and higher. Then molten rock called magma rises up through the cracks in the earth, and it quickly cools down. It becomes solid, and it makes the volcano grow higher and higher and higher. Eruptions are caused when this magma is jostled around under the earth and then pushed up through the volcano powerfully. That's how volcanoes are made, Robin. But I do urge you to go and check out the chat that we had with a volcanologist a couple of years ago now. And finally, I promise this will blow your mind. It will change everything you ever thought you knew about a monkey. Nevi Bell asks, why do monkeys eat bananas? Well, are you ready for this, Nevi? They don't. At least they don't really in the wild. A scientist who studied the diets of primates for decades called Catherine Milton, she said that wild monkeys, they're never around bananas to eat them. Instead, in the wild, they eat leaves, flowers, nuts and insects. The only reason we think they eat bananas, in some zoos they do, because cartoons and in stories, for some reason, the monkeys are always eating bananas. But it's got no real basis in real life. In fact, some zoos don't even feed them bananas anymore because they're too sugary, putting on a little bit of chub. But yeah, monkeys don't really eat bananas. Who knew? And that's why we're the Fun Kids Science Weekly, cracking all the secrets and problems of the universe. If you've got anything sciencey that you want answered on the show, you need to leave it as a review for us over on Apple Podcasts, please. It's the Fun Kids Science Weekly. This week we're talking about one of the books shortlisted for the Royal Society's Young People's Book Prize 2020. We've been speaking about this prize for a little while on the show, so let's check in with the author of one of those books. The fantastically named book, by the way, Cats React to Science Fact. I imagine it does what it says on the tin. It's Izzi Howell. She's on the line. Hey, Izzi.
Hiya.
Now, listen, as I've said, I reckon this book, Cats React to Science Fact, does exactly what it says on the title. Tell us about when you had the idea that maybe this might make a pretty cool way to explain science.
Well, I can't take all the credit for the idea. That comes from someone who I work with called Paul Rocket. But he had the idea that all of those hilarious cat pictures on the internet of the cats looking shocked and horrified and excited could actually be a really great way of explaining science. And that just hit a nerve with me because I love cats and I love all those hilarious cat pictures. And we started looking at them and we thought this would make a great book. There are so many pictures of cats online. We've got so much to choose from, and that was how it was born.
Now, I have not seen the book. I'm very fascinated by it. I saw the short list for the Royal Society's Young People's Book Prize, and then I saw the name of yours. I thought, I've got to find out more about this. So, when I'm presented with it, when I open it up, what do the pages look like? What's on each one?
Well, probably about 80% of the page is cats. You won't be surprised to hear. There are it's just cats. Cats. Cats wearing funny costumes, cats making funny faces, and then probably the rest of it, 30% is science.
Right, so let's focus on that science then, because I mean, I love a cat. Come on, I'm going to get a cat soon, actually. But anyway, I love a cat. But I'm very conscious that this has been, shortlisted for a pretty huge science prize. What type of science are the cats being so amazed by?
Well, this title that we've done, the first one, is a pretty good overview of all types of science. So we've got some space, we've got forces, we've got some stuff about plants, different states of matter, light, sound. So the cats really are just a way of showing how the science works. And every so often throughout the book, we have a cat reacting to a science fact. And those are the really good facts throughout. And there's even a little reactometer that will tell you what kind of fact it is. So some of them are wow, some of them are mind-blowing. A few of them are pretty gross. And
give us some of those if you can. Give us an example.
Of the gross ones?
Yeah, always.
Well, there's a glass frog. I don't know if you've ever heard about them. They live in the rainforests, and the whole of their belly is transparent. So you can see their internal organs through their skin, which I think is pretty gross, but also pretty cool.
It's amazing that a creature has evolved to do this.
I know. It's hard to imagine how that came to be, but nature's just incredible like that, isn't it?
Maybe it was trying to put predators off it. Maybe, you don't want to see what's in your dinner kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah, that's a good idea.
So you've written, something around 100 books, so many of them kind of science-focused for kids. What's the secret, do you think, of making these huge concepts quite accessible to us when we are reading them?
Well, I think a lot of the time you've got to think about you yourself as a reader. So I think back to when I was little and I loved reading. I think what did I enjoy reading about? What did I enjoy looking at on the page? And then kind of giving that back to the reader. So thinking about what you're looking for in a book, really.
So how does that work with this book on the page? So say I turn to a page, and there's a cat reacting and explaining to maybe a very basic idea about forces. Just take us through how that would work on a page.
Well, the place that I started was always the science. So thinking about what needs to come across here, what do people need to learn from this page, and then thinking, how can I make this funny? How can I make this humorous and visually interesting on the page? Because I think a lot of the time that's what draws us into a book, is how it looks. And so if there's a really funny cat, so for example, on one of the pages about forces, there's a weightlifter cat holding a giant set of weights, and he's wearing a little hat. And if I was flicking through a book and I saw that, I would think, oh, I want to look at that page, I want to see what else is going on there. And then once you're in the page, then it's got all the information that you need about forces as well. So it's not just a novelty book. There's a lot of good science information in there as well. It just has the bonus of having some hilarious cats as well.
And you've written books about all sorts. I'm looking at some of them now, books about climate change, books about volcanoes, books about biodiversity, about the ancient Greeks, about biomes. Where does this kind of come from, you think? Why are you so curious in finding out how the world works?
I think it's something that I've always had. I've always been interested in the why. And, I think writing these books is such a brilliant job because, I think a lot of the time, especially when you're a bit older, when you've left school, you lose that curiosity, because when you're at school, you're learning things for the first time a lot of the time, and you've got that curiosity switched on in your brain and you're always looking for why. But then when you get a bit older, you kind of forget about these things. So for me, going back and rediscovering all of this stuff that I hadn't thought about for a while is so much fun. re-engaging with volcanoes and thinking, oh yeah, that's brilliant. I'd forgotten all about that.
Let's move back to Cats React to Science Facts, mainly because I love saying the name. We've spoken about forces. There's the glass frog in there as well. What other type of pretty impressive and immense concepts are you explaining through cats?
Well, we've got so many different types of science in here. We've got a little bit about climate change as well. So we've got some stuff about fossil fuels. One of the great gross facts in the book is about cow farts and how they could actually be used to create electricity.
What?
Because they contain methane, the gas methane. I don't think that it's technically possible at the moment. They haven't quite worked out how to harvest the farts. But if they could, we could use cow farts to generate electricity, which I think is pretty amazing.
Because we're always hearing that cow farts are the worst thing ever and they're absolutely destroying the planet. So to be able to funnel, literally, to kind of funnel this gas, that would be world-saving.
It would be. I think someone needs to come up with a device to funnel, as you say, the farts. And it could change the world, couldn't it?
I'm on board with that, and you're on the shortlist for the Royal Society's Young People's Book Prize. What's that like to be surrounded by 5 other and whittled down from hundreds? You're on this list with 5 other incredible science books. What's it like to have your place there?
It's such an honour, it really is. I was so excited to find out that we'd been chosen, because a lot of the books that I write are more serious books that you'd maybe find in a library or use to do your homework. So not as much fun as Cats React to Science Facts, probably. So it's really, really exciting and just a huge honour to have been shortlisted.
Amazing. Well, the book, as I say, looks fantastic. I can't wait to find out more about what these cats are reacting to, but they're reacting to science facts. The book is Cats React to Science Facts. Izzi Howell, thank you so much for coming on the Fun Kids Science Weekly.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, this week's Dangerous Dan, it's all about one of the most dangerous birds in the sky. The blue-capped ifrit looks incredible, by the way. It's a stunning bird. It's quite small, like one you might see in your back garden, with yellow and red markings. And on top, it's got a little bit of blue on its head. That's where it gets its name. You'll find it in the rainforests of New Guinea, where it hunts down beetles that it can eat. Now, from these, it absorbs a deadly neurotoxin called batrachatoxin. We've heard of this many times before on the show. All the really deadly creatures seem to have it. And it moves this poison onto its wings and into the tips of its feathers. And batrachatoxin is one of the most dangerous natural substances that we know of. It causes paralysis, numbness, tingling. Eventually, it can stop your heart. And the worst part, there is no real known antidote to this. And this beautiful bird, this stunning creature, the blue-capped ifrit, it is covered in the stuff. Right, let's get a proper genius on the show now. This is one of my favourite experts explaining how things work inside your body. This is Professor Hallux.
Hallux's Physiology Fix-Up.
Finally! You're putting up those shelves we need.
Nope, making some improvements to this skeleton.
Really? What's wrong with skeletons the way they are?
I can't believe no one's thought of it before. Look at it, all those white lumpy bones. Skinny and knobbly and white, like my granddad on the beach.
So what precisely are you proposing?
This. A titanium skeletal structure with carbon fibre interlocking joints. I've called it the Turbo Titan Skeletron Optic 5000, finished in a number of high-gloss, fashion-forward shades.
You chose those colours?
Of course! We have Avula Pink, Umbilicis Grey, and my personal favourite, Carbuncle Green.
Very, carbuncular. I'm not sure your turbo titanium skeleton is going to be able to do all the jobs that bones have to do.
Jobs? What? Like Lollipop Lady, Zookeeper, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom?
Professor, you know what I mean?
Only joking. As a matter of fact, I do. Organs and systems in our bodies have a number of jobs to do. They're able to do these jobs because of the way they're constructed and the way they work with other parts of the body.
Shall we see if your new and improved skeleton makes the grade?
Loading physiology file.
Bones and skeletons do many important jobs in human bodies. Job 1. Support. Holding bodies upright.
The Turbo Titan Skeletron Optic 5000 should ace this one. That metal is 5 times the strength of bone.
Physiology pass.
Ha! See?
Job 2. Protection. Bones and skeletal structures protect squishy bits in the body. For example, the ribcage protects the heart and lungs.
Physiology pass.
I think this is looking promising, Nanobot.
Job 3. Movement. Bones and joints allow movement in all the ways needed.
Physiology fail.
Not so promising now. That metal skeleton would take a lot of energy to move around. Bones do a great job because they are strong but very light, unlike that stack of metal.
Job 4. Storage. Bones store important fats and minerals, including calcium.
Physiology fail.
Your stack of metal doesn't store anything. Although you could store a few bikes on that massive metal ribcage.
Haha, very funny. Look, there's one job left. Everything to play for.
Job 5. Production of blood cells. Blood cells are made in the bone marrow inside bones.
Physiology fail.
Well, it's only a prototype.
Nice try, Professor. Physiology is fundamental. It not only helps us understand the jobs parts of the body have to do and how they do them, it also means we can understand the effect other things have on our bodies, like the effect of ageing.
Can you oil that door, Nanobot?
Physiologists have observed that the more bones work, the more weight they bear, and the more exercise they do, the more they produce cells, which rebuild the very bones themselves. Your granddad was known for his beach limbo, but many old people aren't as active as younger people. We can predict that older people may have weaker bones. Knowing this helps us to encourage people to stay active for as long as possible, which means stronger bones and...
more beach limbo?
Exactly.
Right, back to the drawing board. Now surely there's a better way to build a heart, you know? Have you seen a heart? It's a big globby mess.
Uh-oh, just don't make it carbuncle green.
Hallux's Physiology Fix-Up, with support from the Physiological Society. Find out more at funkidslive.com/Hallux.
Let's tackle this week's Science in the News. A new analysis shows that the goals of the UN Paris Climate Agreement are within reach. This is brilliant news. The Climate Action Tracer Group, they looked at new promises from China and from Joe Biden, the president-elect of the USA, what they could mean in the rise of temperatures, and apparently they could be held at just over 2 degrees in the next century. Now, that's a lot of words. It's a lot of gobbledygook. Basically, it means that countries are trying to keep their promise to slow down climate change, and it might actually work. Also, Australian scientists say they have mapped 1 million new galaxies using an advanced telescope in the desert. They say they've created a new atlas of the universe in record time. It mapped 3 million galaxies in total, with more detail than ever before, and it took them just 300 hours. Brilliant going. And finally, one of biology's biggest mysteries has been solved using artificial intelligence. Because guessing why a protein in your body folds into its own unique 3D shape, it's puzzled experts for years. But the London AI lab, DeepMind, they say they've cracked the problem, and that the better understanding, this could play a huge role in making new medicines to treat the disease. And that is it for the Fun Kids Science Weekly. If you have something sciencey you want answered on this show, or you want to leave your congratulations for us because we've been awarded the greatest podcast in the history of the universe, that's fine. Leave it as a review on Apple Podcasts for us. While you're there, one of the best places that you can hear all of the brilliant podcasts that we do. And we've got a new one as well, a new one perfect for Christmas, where we are saving Christmas. Make sure you listen to that. It's called Adventures in Pantoland. It is astonishing fun over December. That's on Apple Podcasts. You can also listen to it on the free Fun Kids app and at funkidslive.com and wherever you get your shows. And Fun Kids are a children's radio station from the UK. You can listen to us all over the country on your DAB digital radio, on that free Fun Kids app, and at funkidslive.com.